In this program, we're going to use a file to obtain some data and to analyze the data. I'll call this project File Letter Count. Same thing for the name of the class. We're going to take a text file, open it up, read all the text, and count the number of occurrences of a single character. And that's what I'll explain in the documentation. We're going to ask the users to enter the name of a file and to enter a character. And then we're going to use the char@at method from a string to get separate characters. There's no next character method for scanner objects. There's next line and next, but there's no next character or next char. So we can use char@, a string method, to help us out. We'll have to have a text file ready to go. I'm going to use a file called winniethepooh.txt. I have that file available at bowerpower.net. Hopefully it's not a big copyright violation. It's the lyrics to the Winnie the Pooh song. There they are. You could use any text file. I've already copied it. I'll paste it into the project. And you see it there on the left-hand side in the Package Explorer. You can see I've already imported java.util.scanner. I did that when I paused the video to do some editing. And we'll get ourselves a scanner object. I'll call it keyboard because the users are going to need to enter in, for one thing, a file name. So I have a string variable ready for that. That's the file we're going to check. And we'll need a character, search character, or search char. I'll just abbreviate it like that. That's the character we're going to look for, and count how many times it occurs in the file. And since we're keeping track, we'll need an integer. I'll call it frequency, and that's the number of times the character does occur in the file. All right, well, let's ask the users for a file name. I'll use system.out.print, give them a prompt to enter the name of a file to search, and then file name will be keyboard.nextLine. Next, we'll make a file object. So file input file equals new file, and then the argument in the parentheses will be file name, the string that the users typed in. We'll need to also import from the java.io package. That will happen in a little bit on another edit. We got to check to see if the file doesn't exist. That would be bad if the file does not exist. So I'm going to use an exclamation point. I'm not sure if you can see it yet. If not input file dot exists. So if it's false that the input file exists, that would be bad. Now you can see that exclamation point. So if it's true that it doesn't exist, then we've got no file that we can open up. So we'll print a message to the users. The file does not exist. And for now, we're going to end the program. And we'll do that with system.exit and put 0 in parentheses. We've used this strategy in prior programs. Well, if we get here, the file does exist. So let's get a character from the user that we're going to search for in the file. So we'll prompt the user to please enter a character. And we'll obtain that character, we'll put it in search char, search char, and it will equal keyboard dot. Now remember, we've got next line, and then that next line returns a string, so we'll use dot char@. That's a string method. And we want the character at 0. That will be the very first character they type in. So even if they type in several characters, we'll just take the first one. Let's test this out so you can see what's going on. We'll display what search char is. I'm going to block out the code to check to see if the file exists right now, so that's not in the way. Then it won't matter what we type in for a file name. So we'll enter the name of a file to search. It doesn't matter what we type in now because I blocked that code out. Enter a character. And so if I type in lowercase w, search character is W, or search char is W. I'll get a colon in there so it looks a little better. I should have put a space after that colon, but didn't do it. Again, I'll type in any file right now. I'll enter a character. Well, I'll enter several characters. I'll type snow. Search char took the character at index 0, S, the very first character of the string I put in. All right, let's bring back the code to make sure that the file exists. And I'll go with winniethepooh.txt. Enter a character. If I type all of Eeyore, it's going to take the very first E. I know there's several E's in Eeyore, but it's the very first one in the index of 0. That's what works. If I type in kangaroo.txt, that file does not exist, so we successfully get that error message and the program ends. All right, let's open up the file. I'll call the new scanner object here search file, and the argument will be input file. We've got some red squiggles, and that is the file not found exception or IO exception. We need one of those at the top. We'll go with file not found exception this time. Then we're going to go through the file and count how many times that this character occurs. We'll use a while loop because we don't know how long the file is. So while search file.hasNext, we've seen that before. As long as that's true, this loop will keep going. So we'll get the next line from the file. We could use .nextLine or we could use .next. You've seen .nextLine before. I'm going to use .next at first in this program just so you can see what happens. For .next, the white space is a delimiter, so it will stop reading after it encounters a space. Once we get a word or a line, we need to loop through all the characters on that line. So check this out. We'll have string str this line equals search file dot next, just to see what happens. And again, let's test this out so you can see how .next uses white space as a delimiter. You'll see that every single word is going to be printed out individually. So I'll run the program, look for winniethepooh.txt. I'll type in a character to search for. And there you see what happens with .next. Every time there was a space, that was the end of what .next read. There's the original file. Anytime it found space or a new line character, that was the end of what it read. Well, for each one of those, Winnie, the Pooh, Christopher, Robin, 100 Acre, we've got to loop through every single character in that string and see if we can find the character we're looking for. We'll use a for loop. For int I equals 0, and as long as I is less than the length of the string, this line, so the first one is deep, that has a length of 4. I will be 0, 1, 2, and 3. And we want I to go up by 1, so I++. So this is to loop through one line of characters. And as we check each character in this for loop, we'll see if there's a match. If there is, we'll bump up frequency by 1. So if search character, which is a primitive data, it's a character, so we can use double equals, str this line dot char at. We'll bring this method back again. But we want this to be, for example, on the first line, 0, 1, 2, and 3 for deep, so we'll use I, the counter. It will be 0, 1, 2, and 3, and we can check each character on that individual line. Once again, we'll increment frequency by 1 if it does generate a match. The for loop runs for each time the while loop runs. The while loop generates the individual lines, and then within each line, the for loop will check for the character. We'll close the file and then print off the results. Let the users know how many times the character appeared. So we'll again look through winniethepooh.txt. We'll search for the character lowercase h. Apparently it happens 37 times. There's the file. If you'd like to pause the video and count all the lowercase h's, that should be correct. Let's search again. This time we'll look for capital W, and it happens 13 times. Again, you can pause the video here and count all the W's, the capital W's. This time we'll search for capital Z. It never happens in the file. So frequency was never increased. Now, as I said, we could have used next line. Typically, it seems like that's what we usually use. I just wanted to show you how both work. If we use next line, we'll get the same answer. So with winniethepooh.txt, if we search for the capital letter W, we should get 13 times, and we do. The new line character is the delimiter for next line. So you'll see the entire line as it appeared in the text file if we check out each line this way for str this line. So just to see, instead of seeing individual words each time, you'll see what we saw in the file when we checked it out at bowerpower.net. So it's a new character that tells next line that it's done reading. But still, each line has a for loop that runs all the way through it and checks for the individual characters and counts to see what goes on. So we could use .next or .nextLine. Seems like a lot of times with files I'm using .nextLine, but I wanted you to see that either one could work. And there's the difference between the two. Same answer is generated. And we had to use .char at again. That's a string method because we can't have a next character method for a scanner. So we can use a scanner to get a string and then get the characters at by using the char at method for that string later on.